Sense of the body, you guys hot or cold? Hot. Want to turn the heater off? Y'all good? Y'all like how it is? All right. Well, we can just turn the thermostat down a couple of notches, though. We ain't got to turn it off. So, all right. I'll do that real quick. All right. So, nevertheless, with that being done, all right. So, shalom, family. All right, so this class is one of the new series we're going to start, really dealing with Bible study, all right? So this isn't traditional Bible study. We're going to be dealing with going through the Bible, dissecting it verse by verse, precept by precept, line by line, all right? So we want to make sure everyone understands what it is that they're reading. And if you don't, well, once again, I'm here to help you. Whatever it is you don't understand and would like to understand better. So once again, it's one of those things to where don't look at it as us trying to just read through it as fast as possible. That's not the point. You know, so you can read through it. That doesn't necessarily mean you understand everything that you're reading. So that's not what it is we're trying to do. Make sense? All right, so now we're going to get a few things. So now let's get Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. We're not really even going to go far. We'll barely make it past Genesis 1 and 1. Read Genesis chapter 1, verse 1.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, Yahweh created the heaven and the earth was without form and void.
So now, when you read Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, you'll see that there are three main principles of physics, what physics deals with in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1. Who knows them or who can point them out? Who has the mic? Will you pass the mic to, yeah. All right, go ahead now. Who can point out those three laws of physics, or those main, not the only laws, but the main laws of physics? Anybody know? Because once again, one of the biggest things you'll find out that people oftentimes deal with, they don't believe the Bible deals with science. They believe the Bible is just makeshift fairy tales or, you know, that's your religion. But when it comes down to science, we have other things for that. You know, that's not actually, you know, science, so to speak. That's just your religion. When in fact, that's not the case. So it's my job to help show you that and prove that once again, that comes from Esau's philosophy. Because let's go ahead and we'll come back to this, the age of the earth, but let's go ahead and go and get this slide for me. You know, Ehran. All right. So now when you look at this, what do you see under the second highlight? The first one is the age of the earth. What do you see the second one? What does it say? This article is about, the second highlight. The top one is age of the earth. The second one is this article is about the scientific age of the earth. They say scientifically, the age of the earth is 4.54, give or take, 0.05 billion years. So now they say for religious beliefs, see dating creation. Now, when at the end of the day, this isn't science. This is religion. This has nothing to do with science. But now we're going to get a few things. So go back to Genesis chapter 1 and go ahead and read verse 1.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. Now stop. What does beginning mean? Oh, wait. Someone said it started with an S. Start. So we know beginning means start. We're dealing with the start of what? Start of what? Someone said it. It was a sister. I think Monica said it. You said it? Time. That's one of the laws of physics you're dealing with. So you see time right there in the scripture. Now, what's one of the other two? And let me get that for some that may not understand physics, may not have taken class. So now you see branches of science. You see physical science, earth science, biology. You see physics. So we have time. What are the other two in there? Space. Space is what? He said it up here for you. So who else said it? Space is what? Heaven. That's what we're dealing with space. Now, what's the last one we're missing? Matter. Matter is what? Earth. So you have space, time, and matter. All right, so now we're going to do it once again in the beginning because these are the key things, what I want you guys to do. Because how many of you guys, if it was a situation, right now you had this scientist, this brother just so studied when it comes down to this science and things of that nature, you know, or sister, your sister just, I've studied the earth is, you know, millions of years of age, you know, so, and we've studied that. How many of y'all be afraid of that? Y'all ain't afraid of it? So y'all be ready to be able to disprove and show how? What do you mean nice? Someone being honest? Nah. So who is ready? Raise your hand if you're not ready. Keep your hand down if you're ready. So I know who to call on or not. Keep your hand down if you're ready. Who ready? All right. All right, hands down. All right, so now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good thing that you're not ready? It's a bad thing. But we can change that. So we can change that because it's understanding how all these things make sense. Because when you're taught signs of things in school, and even when you're reading scientific literature, which I even try with the brethren, you'll even deal with, Esau puts these things in a language that's not easy to understand. He doesn't make it simple for you. He says, well, if you take the spatial time, dimension, divided by inertia, and then you get it where A is B. When at the end of the day, who knows what spatial is? Spatial is space. What about inertia? Movement. That's it. Just like when you have a fan, you have an oscillating fan, you have a moving fan. You just turn it on oscillating mode. How come they just can't put it on turn mode? Just keep it simple. Because all those things help keep you dumb to the understanding of what it is he's talking about. And I want to make wise the simple. I want to simplify those things so that each one of you guys do it. So now I can do this because I started with the kids in Tila. So the kids in Tila can get it. Y'all can get it. I would hope, right? That deals with, I would hope y'all at least smarter than a 7 and 8 year old. I would hope so. So that means you guys should be able to easily pick up on it, which you guys so far have been able to do. So now we beginning with time. Once again, in Genesis 1:1, what time are we dealing with? Because someone can say, when it comes down to time, how do we measure time? How do we measure time? What y'all bumbling for? How do we measure time? Okay, even before that, we're going to get there. That's skipping ahead. So sun and moon, perfect answer. But now, day and night, what do you use what most of y'all got? A clock. Use a clock. You look at the clock and you say, oh, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're looking at as orology. All right? So I'll get that for you real quick. So, orology is the art or science of making timepieces, which are clocks, or measuring time. That's what you're dealing with. So you're dealing once again with orology. That's what you're dealing with time. But now, once again, and many of you guys said the sun and moon, that's what we use, but it's one of those things to where this clock, this watch that we may have, this is fixed time. So prior to this watch, what was it that our forefathers and foremothers were using? They're using a sundial. So let me get that and bring that up. So now, one of the biggest things that they were using were known as sundials. Sundial, they'll be able to see, okay, well, I know what time it is. But now remember, this isn't fixed time. So when someone deals with how long is an hour, hour is however long it takes for the shadow to move from one hand to the next, or 1 hour to the next. It's not fixed on 60 minutes. Esau made it fixed on 60 minutes. That's how he started to break it down to where, well, okay, I'm going to identify time that's 60 minutes an hour. That was of Esau. That wasn't of, the Most High, because once again, these ordinances move. The sun, the moon, the earth, these things are all alive. They're not 100% like fixed or static, just like us, we're alive. The sun is alive. The earth, it's alive. The moon is alive. So these things, even when you look at when passing a time and see, the sun doesn't rise and set at the same exact place every day of every week of every month of every year. You'll notice it starts to pivot where it rises and sets. It changes its particular slight path, not necessarily it starts going in a complete opposite direction, but it changes in that regard. So time is relative, all right? So time is relative, and we deal with relative to that sun and moon. To read Genesis 1:1, you're not reading in the context of there being a sun and moon, are you? So when people get down and read Genesis chapter 1, and go ahead, I want you to read verse 5.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day.
So once again, looking at time, but were the sun and the moon created yet? No. What day were the sun and moon created? Day 4, right? So now it's one of those things, well, how are you going to deal with time when you don't have a sun and moon? That's very easy. Let's go ahead and let's get a couple of places. We're going to get Revelation, get 2nd Ezra. We're going to go ahead and get a few places. And actually, before we get 2nd Ezra, let's get Joshua first. Let's get Joshua 10. And let's go ahead and read Joshua chapter 10. And let's start with verse 12 and 13. 12 through 14.
Joshua chapter 10, verse 12. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said, in the sight of Israel, sun, stand thou still, Gibeon, and thou moon, in the valley of
Ajalon.
Read.
So he said, look, sun, stand thou still, and moon, stand thou still. Because these tools are used to measure what? Time. It's how we keep track of time. I shouldn't use measure. It's how we help keep track of time relative to us. So now when you're dealing with time in this context, and when you're reading in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, you're dealing with time as, and you're dealing with three aspects of time, which I'll get momentarily. Time more so in how we know it, but time as far as dealing with an error. That's what you're dealing with. He's dealing with an error when he's making these things, which you're also going to deal with. When you start dealing with the passing of time, you start to deal with what? Past events, or dealing with what? What is past events? History. That's what you're dealing with now. You start dealing with history. So now this is one of the things, he's dealing with the writing of history. So you're dealing with time as we know it, but you're also dealing with history. Those things are very key and what's going to help us in everything it is that we start reading forward. Continue reading.
And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Joshua? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day.
About a what?
A whole day.
So about the space of what we would see as a whole day, the sun was up. So yet and still, one would say that he, Most High, effectively did what to time? He stopped it. He said, I'm going to stop time right here, because this is what you use for time. But now, is this necessarily reflective of time itself? What do you think, yes or no? No. You know, then it's okay if someone says, I don't know. No, it's not. Because once again, looking at, well, let's get something else. We're going to go ahead and we can get at the book of Revelation. It's very important to understand. Let's get Revelation. And we're going to get chapter 21 and read verse 23. And then we're going to get Revelation 22 and 5.
Revelation chapter 21, verse 23. And the city had no need of the sun.
So what city are we dealing with? Jerusalem. That's what we're dealing with. You read earlier on, we're dealing with Jerusalem. Read on. And you can read verse 2.
Neither of the moon.
Read verse 2.
Verse 2. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem.
New what?
New Jerusalem.
So we're dealing with Jerusalem. Go back to where we were and continue reading in verse 23. You can read it from the top.
And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, to shine in it. For the glory of the Most High did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof.
So now, why doesn't Jerusalem need the sun or the moon? Anyone? Take a guess. All right, go ahead. Radak, can we pass her the mic? Whoever has it, may you pass her the mic, please? So why doesn't the city need the sun or the moon?
You know, as he was walking the microphone over, I had like 3 different thoughts. But
It's
I would
okay.
think you probably don't need it because it's supposed to be for eternity. So it's like we use the sun and the moon to measure time, but there will probably be no need for that because we're living forever.
Thank you. That's it. So the Most High had beautiful, good answer. So now, once again, the Most High created time for us. He didn't have any need of time. My time is infinite. There's no start or beginning or end when it comes down to my time. Once again, you guys are immortal. You have no need of time. You don't need the sun and the moon, things of that nature. Those things are irrelevant to you. You just need them now in these fleshly tabernacles because your days are numbered. And you got to number each day. But when it comes down to us in our kingdom, we'll be immortal. It doesn't matter. You'll just know what day it is. Hold that, and let's get, get Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 8, 10 and 11. If someone says, well, don't we need the sun and the moon to, determine our feast and everything in that nature? It's going to be in you. You'll know.
Hebrews chapter 8, verse 10. This is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord.
So now this is both applies currently, but also in the future as well. This is also done with the new covenant, but the new covenant, we're still in that new covenant. Read on.
I will put my laws in their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be their power, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest.
So now, it's one of those things, we won't have to worry about teaching, but you got to make sure you wear your fringes, know these laws. We're all going to know it. It's going to be in you. You'll naturally know, okay, I have to do this. It's like, at the end of the day, it comes down to it when, at this point in time, you got to remember your name. You got to remember your birthday. You got to look on the calendar to, oh, snap. What day is my birthday? Let me check my birth certificate. Do you have to do that? Why not? You got to check. How you know? It's in you, right? So the same thing, the laws is going to be us in the same way. It's going to be in you. You're going to know whether or not it's Passover. Passover is coming up. These things that are going to be in you. No different than the same thing where you ain't got to worry about getting cut and hurt and scraped in all these different ways. Because once again, you can be immortal. No harm can come to you. No sickness. No disease. Things we can't even fathom in that regard because we're so used to being sick, getting hurt. Can't imagine what it is not to feel pain. But yet and still, you'll still be able to feel pleasure, eat and drink the whole nine. Most of us said, yeah, I'll give you that. I'll just take away pain. I said, damn, take away pain but still have pleasure? How you do that? We can't even comprehend that. Now, we're going to get to that momentarily because now, here's the thing. We're understanding time in this regard, but how much do you think Esau understands time? How much do you think he understands the earth and all of these different things? Because we're going to deal with history too. Because don't they say that there's, which we just found out, which we're reading, let me pull that up again. Dealing with, they say once again with time, there's a time of the beginning. Earth was created. This is it right here. 4.54 plus or minus 0.05 billion years. So they believe, hey, there's a time things started, but is that date correct? Is that time correct? Yes or no? Now, how would you prove it? What is the correct time? And how do you know that that's not correct? You have to understand how does he do that and get that, and then be able to counter-argue it. Because once again, many times you see it, some of you got to know like in Christian, all right, well, the Bible says so. Well, the Bible is real, right? Well, the Bible is real, right? So now, if the Bible is real, well, shouldn't we be able to use science and nature that deals with the Bible and be able to prove that these things are correct scientifically? Shouldn't we? Now, how many of us can do that? That's what we have to improve. That's the key thing that gives Esau and others who study his particular science the advantage over us, because science is foreign to us. But yet and still, they study it. Oh, yeah, the molecular lifespan of this. And they pride themselves on that. And they try to go ahead and hit you in your ignorance. That's how they try to get you. But I don't want us to be ignorant. Because now he says, well, we know this is the scientific age of the earth, but how much is it that he doesn't know or that we don't even understand? Get 2 Ezra, chapter 6, 1 through 6.
Second Ezra chapter 6, verse 1. And he said unto me, in the beginning when the earth was made, before the borders of the world.
So the earth was what? Made. All right, read verse 1 from the top again.
And he said unto me, in the beginning.
In the beginning. We have to find out when that beginning is and understand that particular beginning. Go ahead, I want you to flip over. Go ahead and start at verse 4 and read verse 1. And start from 2 Ezra chapter 4, read on down.
2 Ezra chapter 4, verse 1.
So listen to what it is he's telling Ezra. Because Ezra's in a place, he was fasting. He fasted for many weeks to get understanding. And he's over there asking the Most High, which some of us have even asked. Like, dang, man, we've been in captivity for so long. You start reading the scripture, we in captivity more than we not in captivity. It seems like the other nations, they get blessed more than we do. If we've been the only ones keeping your laws, why do we still get stuck in these predicaments? How long is this supposed to even deal with? Most Allah, all right, I hear you. Here's my answer. Read.
2 Ezra chapter 4, verse 1. And the angel that was sent unto me, whose name was Uriel, gave me an answer, and said, Thy heart hath gone too far in this world.
He said, listen, your heart's going too far in this world right now. You know, you're trying to comprehend my ways. You don't even understand your ways. Let me explain. Read.
And thinkest thou to comprehend the way of the Most High? Then said I, Yea, my Lord.
He said, yeah, I'm trying to understand how you doing things. How you set all this up. Read.
And he answered me and said, I am sent to show thee 3 ways.
He said, look, I'm going to show you 3 ways. Read.
And to set forth 3 similitudes before thee, whereof, if thou canst declare me one,
He said, look, declare me one out of these 3 and I can deal with you. Read.
I will show thee also the way that thou desirest to see, and I will show thee from whence the wicked heart cometh.
So now he's pretty much going to answer his question with another question. All right. So someone feels you can't do that. Yeah, you can do that. You can ask a question and someone asks you to answer with a question because I'm trying to understand what it is that you're saying and coming from. This question is going to help give the answer. With the same thing he's doing with Ezra. Read on.
And I said, Tell me, O my Lord. Then said he unto me, Go thy way, weigh me the weight of the fire, or measure me the blast of the wind.
So now the first thing he said is, measure me the weight of fire. Who can do that? Nobody. How much that fire weigh? Probably 0.05 lone ounces. That's what we're looking at. No, you can't. Read on. And the second thing he said, measure me the blast of the wind. So show me where, when you feel that breeze, show me where it started, how long it was, and where it ended. Who can do that? No one can. That breeze come, I don't know where it came from. Which direction did it go? Out that way. It flowed. Read on.
Or call me again the days that is past.
He said, look, can you time check? Can you go back and reverse time? Most High can reverse time because the time is of the sun and the moon. I can stop those elements and send them back the other direction. I'll take it back to yesterday. I can do that because I created this time. This is what I created in my particular realm. So now when you deal with God in this particular dimension, this particular area, and let me actually get that. Read on, because I'm going to get this other thing to show
Then
you.
answered I and said, What man is able to do that?
He said, look, who's able to do that? Read on.
That thou shouldest ask such thing of me.
He said, look, who's able to do that you're going to ask me that? I don't know. Read on.
And he said unto me, If I should ask thee how great dwelling are in the midst of the sea, or how many springs are in the beginning of the deep, or how many springs are above the firmament.
Now that's what we get into when we start breaking down that firmament in the next future parts. When dealing with, there are springs in the sky. Now who can point up in the sky, show me all the springs? Where's all the spring the Most High created? Oh yeah, there's a spring there and a spring there. Oh yeah, that's where, because the spring where the water come through. He said, look, show me the springs where I let the water come in through the sky. Can you do that? You can't even see them. You can't comprehend it. It said, most people was like, I didn't even know there were springs up there. That's the truth. That's what most people, man, tell it how it is. Most people said, it's beyond me. All right, go ahead, continue reading.
Or which are the outgoings of the paradise. Peradventure, thou wouldest say unto me, I never went down into the deep, nor as yet into hell. Neither did I ever climb up into heaven. Nevertheless, now have I asked thee, but only of the fire and wind, and of the day, wherethrough thou hast passed, and of the things from which thou canst not be separated. And yet canst thou give me no answer of them?
He said, look, I only asked you about the fire and the wind and the water separate. You can't even answer that? Read on.
He said, moreover unto me, thy own things, and such as are grown up with thee, canst thou not know?
Think about it. How long y'all been cooking? Y'all been turning on that fire, but yet and still y'all don't know the weight of it? Make it sound dumb, huh? You know, how much that fire? How long you been watching the sky bring forth rain and you don't even know where the springs are in the sky? This is what the Most High telling Ezra. These things have been with you. You wasn't born yesterday, right? So these things have been with you. You can't even tell me about the things that are here in your realm. Yet you live in this realm. Read on.
How should thy vessels then be able to comprehend the way of the highest?
So now, how are you then going to even understand my way and how I do things? This is going to be very key when it comes down to Esau, because Esau, we're going to get into how much he does not know. He does not know. He theorizes, he speculates, he guesses, and then he tries to teach that as science when that is his religion. That is blind faith. You have nothing to stand on. You put out numbers down here in different methods, that even these methods, and I'm going to teach you, because I love having fun on the streets, I'm going to teach you how to stump because most of our people who are conscious, they don't really look up this stuff. They just regurgitate it. Even scientific communities just regurgitate it. Unless you're actually an astrophysicist or a geophysicist or things of that nature, most people don't really study these things. I chose to put myself in a place to where I'm going to study these things, and I'm going to read the scientific journals. Well, most of you guys read, like you ever read, like Men's Health, Women's Health. You're not reading the scientific journals. You're reading the interpretation of it from a middle person or secondhand source. That means they went and either read it or had someone else read it, break it down so they can understand. Most people don't read the scientific journal because I don't understand what the hell they're talking about. But the goal is, I seek to understand those things. Why? Because I want to make sure no matter who I'm dealing with, you can't stump me. Because I know the information you're talking about better than you know it. And I'll say it just like that. And I've done that in Arizona. I've done that in other places out here on the street. And I've had a ball game because I know they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Well, see, you got to look at the trees and trees. What is that scientifically called? How accurate is that? What are the methods? I'm going to go in deep. I don't like scaling on the surface. I want to deal with, give me the ins and outs of it. And I don't even have to profess myself to be a teacher. I'll say, okay, I'll be the student. I got questions. Teach me. Okay, what about this? What about this? That's it. You don't have to be the teacher and say, well, let me show you. No, let them show you. Let them. You don't have to show them. Let them show you. Teach me. Egyptian civilization, that go back, 10,000 years. Prove it. Well, see, that's based upon, carbon dating. How many of you guys heard of carbon dating? Now, who understands carbon dating? That's the key thing I have to give you guys, to understand how it works. And you can get someone that says, well, yeah, the earth is carbon dated to like 100,000. Them don't even go together. Someone saying it, them don't even go together. That's like saying you bake a cake with fried chicken. That don't work that way. That's not going to bake a cake. I don't know what you're making, because you don't use that method to go ahead and date, the earth. But some people, not even knowing, they just say, all right, earth carbon dated at this. But no, that's not true. So now, one thing I want to bring up, go ahead and get back to the iPad. May you please, Ahron? All right, so now, this is one of the things that they have. This is called the WMAP. We'll come back to this later on. There's other ones out there. There's Core. There's also Planic, one of the newest ones. But one of the things you see is on this particular sheet, you notice there's this pretty much cone of this expansion of the universe, right? And you see these quantum fluctuations. Okay, we'll deal with quantum time and momentarily. How many of you guys seen Avengers Endgame? All right. That's like, most of y'all should have seen, that beat Titanic and Avatar. It's like #1 bestseller, box office. All right, so now, same thing, dealing with the quantum realm. Quantum is very small. That's what we're dealing with. Quantum is very, very small. And there, they say time is like, it passes like infinite. So there must be some small fluctuations that happen in created life, which science calls, so-called science calls what? The Big Bang, right? So now this is what they say, the Big Bang. So they realized there was something that started somewhere. And there's this expansion that happened and that then made everything. The WMAP is that satellite right there that is picking up supposedly these things light years away. So now, in order to have this, you have to deal with the laws of nature. Someone give me an example of a law of nature. Who knows? Go ahead, Javon. Gravity, thank you. Beautiful. Gravity, that's a law of nature. What goes up must come down. Gravity is a law of nature. Time is a law of nature. So now when you're dealing with these particular laws, they have to not be physical, act on the physical, and create the physical from nothing and predates the creation of the universe. That's what you have to have. Because it's like you ever have someone say, well, when was God born? How old is God? Yeah, that's an unwise question. Well, how is it? Well, if you're saying, how old is God, that means you're subjecting him to time. He's not subject unto time. He exists outside the realm of time, which even by this map, they say outside of that is nothing. Like absolutely nothing. You can't even think of no air, no oxygen, no, whatever. This is just nothing out there, like just nothing. We can't even really fathom what nothing looks like. But it's one of those things where outside of that is nothing. But yet and still, they created this in a particular space, which we're going to get into, because when you're dealing with in the beginning, Genesis chapter 1 and 1, go back there. Read Genesis 1 and 1.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, the Most High created the heaven and the earth, and the earth was without form.
So now, beginning is time. So that is going to be, when you're looking at time, this is going to be, well, when did these things take place? Once again, then with heaven, that's a space. So where did these things take place? The earth is the what? What did you put in this particular space? That's what you're dealing with. The what, the where, the when. These things have to come coexistence at the same time. If he made the beginning in the earth, but left out the heaven, where would he have put it? And he just created the heaven and the earth in that space of matter. When would he put it? They all have to come into existence at the same time. Did that make sense? So when it comes down to us, they all have to come existence at the same time. That's when you're dealing with space-time. So now, get another example of that. And how much it is that we don't know. Let's get the first thing. Let's go back to the slide. I want to get, because one other thing we'll do, we'll go into Egypt. We'll go into dinosaurs and man. We deal with the pre-flood, the world of Adam. We're going to deal with some of these things. I just want to get a particular aspect. All right, so dealing with what is myth and reality. So now, one of the things you deal with, for a fact, dinosaurs existed at some point in time because you see this, right? You're able to see that and verify that they existed. But the thing is when? How long? Were they with man? Were they not with man? Those are things that I'm going to teach you and show and prove you. We're going to go into archaeology, start bringing out things to show you that, okay, these things all existed with man, and we're going to prove it. We're going to prove how these things existed with man. If someone says, well, this dinosaur go back to the Cretaceous period. Okay, well, there's fossils of man that go back to the Cretaceous period. Impossible. Here's the source right here. Okay, that's what it's impossible. All right, well, how do you know? Let's show it. Let's prove it. So now, what is big or small? This is going back to relativity, things that are relative. So now, is this ball big or small? Small, how do you know? It looks small. So this one, some may say maybe big on the screen or big to me, but it's one of those things, this one is small, just a little foam ball. But now, when you look at things, we consider. So now it's one of those things that we consider all of these balls right here. We got basketball, baseball, golf ball, but it's one of those things to where we understand all of these things here are relative to one another. So I know a basketball is a big ball compared to these other balls. Basketball is big compared to a golf ball. That's why I may say a basketball is big. Or I may say, you know what? A tennis ball is small compared to a soccer ball. That's relativity, okay? The relation of these things one to another, which is also empirical science. So now empirical science are the natural sciences and social sciences. So what does the meaning of the word empirical? It means the knowledge must be based on observable phenomena. It must be capable of being verified by other researchers working under the same conditions. So now, which they use the scientific method: observation, induction, deduction, testing, evaluation. We'll come back to those things later, so don't worry about them. Now, once again, are these turtles big or small? Small. How you know? They're small relative to the hand, right? What about this turtle? This a big one? Well, what? It's bigger. Some may or may not consider it a big turtle because you're looking at it in relative to the hand. Now, what about this turtle? Big or small? Big. Why do you say it's big? Huh? Relative to the people. Okay, so you're using the people to judge whether or not this is a big turtle. Okay, so now, we know big and small relative to modern day what it is that we can prove and substantiate, right? That doesn't mean that's always been the case. And we're going to deal with those things too. Because nevertheless, it's one of those things which we'll get momentarily. This is a big turtle. That's a big turtle. But that's compared to this turtle here. So now it's one of those things to where we understand big according to what it is we know now. But I'm going to show you big on a whole new different term and a whole new different scale. You're going to understand what truly big actually is. We're going to go back to 2nd Ezra. Because you can't look at the modern world today and think that's the way that it's always been. That's not true. So now let me go back out of this and get 2nd Ezra. And we are going to get, let me see. Let's get 2nd Ezra chapter 5, read verse 52 through 55.
2nd Ezra chapter 5, verse 52.
Read it.
Say unto her, wherefore are not thy whom thou hast now brought forth like those that were before, but less of stature?
So now he says, say unto her, say unto the woman, wherefore are not they whom thou hast now brought forth like those that were before? But now why are they less of stature? Read on.
And she shall answer thee, they that be born in the strength of youth are of, excuse me, are of one fashion.
So those that be born in strength of youth are of one fashion. Read.
And they that are born in the time of age, when the womb faileth, are otherwise considered, though therefore also how that ye are less.
Now it says, now the time of age when the womb faileth are otherwise. They're of a different fashion. Read on.
Consider thou thereof also how that ye are also of less stature than those that were before you.
So when it comes down to those that are before you, you're significantly smaller. Both in height, size, weight, you're significantly smaller. Your forefathers were bigger than you. Literally, your foremothers and forefathers were both bigger than you. So you guys are small. Now read on. What else does he say?
And so are they that come after you, less than ye.
So now he says, even though they're to come after you, they're going to be smaller than you. They're going to be weaker. Some of you guys have noticed over the years, a generation getting weaker and weaker. They're getting smaller, shorter, or sensitive. Same thing. That's just what's happening. So now I said, look, the same thing. They are getting smaller and weaker. Read on.
As the creature which now begin to be old have passed over the strength of youth.
Mm-hmm.
Then said I.
So now, that was it. So now, once again, so that's when you deal with what is big, we can bring this up. Go ahead and go back to the iPad, Edron. And transition back. So now, that's why you can see this. So those, now, once again, we don't even know if this is the biggest. This is just the biggest that they found so far. But now, how much did that truly say? Is that saying a lot or a little bit? Well, let's see. Because how much have they, and once again, it's going back to the point, how much do we know? Esau likes to say all these things are factual. Well, how much facts do you really know? How much can you really prove? Some may have seen this growing up. More than 95% of our oceans remain unexplored or undiscovered. That's a fact. How many guys seen that? We only know about 5% or 4% about, our oceans. That's a fact. That's true. So now you only know that little when it comes down to our oceans, but yet and still you're going to say you just understand so much. Because he'll contradict himself and say, well, yeah, we just don't have so much understanding of all different species, our ecosystems. But now, so today, we have explored approximately 5% of the ocean. So now we don't even know what's in there. You see others that say, well, look, there are about 8.7 million species on Earth, of which 80% are undiscovered. We still, when it comes down to animals, when it comes down to species, 80%, we don't even know what's out there. But yet and still they say, it's no different than when you go to a grocery store. You can see the same fruits and vegetables. What are the typical fruits you know of? Banana, kiwi, apple, that ain't even all the fruits. Watermelon, it's a gang of fruits, but you only know what it is you see in the store, what's native to you. You're like, man, it's all these other fruits and things. You just know the realm he shows you. Same thing with vegetables. Well, likewise with our earth. We only know about 5% of our oceans. Most of the mountain ranges, like the Himalayas, Columbia's North Mountains, are not fully discovered. Then when it comes down to dense forests, like Amazon and Western Ghats of India, those aren't fully discovered. Areas like Antarctica, Greenland, Siberia, things of that nature, those areas are still not really discovered. Same thing, Earth is still an alien planet. This is going back to what it is the Most High was telling Ezra. You don't even really know your own realm. You're trying to comprehend mine. And yet and still, you start trying to say, well, we know all of these things, when in the day, you don't really know. So now, and I'm going to read this, and he says, actual discovery of new life is actually uncertain. When we deal with it and go on to planets, things of that nature, which we'll get later on. But the good news is that we'll probably discover completely new alien ecosystems right here in our probable habitat, or habitable, and only partially explored home planet. We can still boldly go where no one has gone before by investigating. It said 1, Earth's mysterious underground superocean. It said we've only explored about 0.4% of the Earth's total mass. It might turn out to be the most interesting 0.4%, but the fact remains that almost everything we might ever find on Earth is underneath us, both through ground, covering up with time and passage of time, which when we start dealing with the book of Exodus, we're going to start dealing with archaeology. We'll start dealing with, well, how do we know? Because once again, Genesis and Exodus are the main 2 books you need to understand that confound pretty much anyone who tries to come up against the Bible. Because these people can argue, well, ain't no God, God don't exist, or, y'all wasn't in Egypt, or, Earth is millions of years old. All the arguments are going to stem from the same 2 books. You understand those 2 books, you got it. You got it. You better defeat anybody that come against the Bible. Aside from anything that may just be a doctrine of Christianity, just regarding, other things in the New Testament of Christ. That's just pretty much it. So now, that's why I'm focusing so much on those books and breaking them down. You get these things, you'll be golden. So now, once again, it says, for all of human history, Earth explorers have been quite literally just scratching the surface. So still so many things that they still don't know. So now that deals with the upper atmosphere. There's still little they know. The ocean floor, they don't know. The frozen world, things of that nature. Our own bodies, they don't even fully know and understand. So, and still, there's even more with unexplained corners of the earth. So now, yet and still, all this that we don't know, Esau's saying we don't know, but he'll still come back and say some things like this. Well, you see, and this is from space.com, where you see, according to research, the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. Well, show me that. Because once again, dealing with time and history, the proof, and I may have said this to some of you guys, how far back do y'all actually think time and history goes? How far back? When you look at, all right, let's just say, what we can prove, because looking at time, dealing with the beginning, what can we prove historically? Can we prove it goes back million, billion, 500, 1,000, 10,000? How far back you think we do? What's a guess? What's a number? Or at least I can say how far, mainstream what Esau been able to find, like how far back we can go. We can date this accurately all the way up to here. How far back? How much? Million years? That's a guess. Okay. Anyone else? How far back you think? Take a guess. 50,000 years? Okay, that's another guess. Okay, anyone else? All right, how many of y'all don't know? All right, that's fine. I'll show you. Now, when they're looking at history, What are the different things that they have? What are different methods when looking at history? You know, actually, I may have to actually teach you that. Take a guess, okay, when looking at history, what are they looking at? How do they know history? Who said that? Shawashan? You said geology?
Archaeology.
Archaeology. Okay, good. That's a good one. Archaeology. So we have to look into that. What's another one? It's a lot of these archaeologies. Bones. Bones is going to go back into archaeology, okay? But we'll get into that because what dating method, we talked about the main predominant two. What are the main two predominant radiometric dating methods? Radha got it. Go ahead, pass it to Mike. What are the main two? Does anyone know these main two? You know one of them, and I'm sure you guys know one. Most likely you know the one you hear all the time. Go ahead and say it. The other one you guys probably don't know.
Carbon dating?
Carbon dating, all right? So the other one is uranium lead dating. So you have carbon dating, and carbon breaks down into what element? Anyone know? Nitrogen. It breaks down to nitrogen. There's carbon in the atmosphere. Now, do you know why they use carbon dating? Because carbon dioxide is generally in everything. So it becomes radiocarbon through the sun's rays that hit our atmosphere, radiating that carbon in the air. And that carbon breaks down into nitrogen. What's the half-life of it? Does anyone know? 5,730 years, give or take 60 years. So now, let's do the math. Who's good at math? Who's the math expert? Radha, Javon, who else? Any of y'all good at math? All right, let's do this. Let's go, take it back to the slide. Let's do this. So we're going to look at carbon-14. Because once again, this is dealing with time and history. You can prove him wrong with his own science. This is what you're getting. Let's deal with this. My first time using this. Later on, let me borrow this. Be easier, so forgive my crappy writing. So C14 is also known as what? All right, carbon-14, because there's a mass number of 14. But it's not the only form of carbon. You also have carbon-12, but carbon-12 isn't as heavy as carbon-14 when it comes down to being in the atmosphere, and there's a different degenerate rate of carbon-12 and carbon-14. You also have radiocarbon. These are all synonymous. So if someone tries to trip you up with these, know that they're all the same. So someone says, well, that's carbon, or that's carbon-14, or that's C14, that's radiocarbon. They're all the same thing. You know, to show you that too, because some of these things too, you guys can look it up, improve it, or you can just go ahead and, you know, hey, say it up there, things of that nature. Carbon-14, what do you also see down there at the bottom? Radiocarbon. Radiocarbon is once again also called carbon-14, a radioactive isotope of carbon with mass number 14, like I said, and a half-life of about 5,730 years. Was it not correct? All right, so once again, so now, we understand that. Now it says it's widely used in the dating of organic material. Someone give me an example of an organic material. Plants. Okay, what else? Who said it? Dirt? No, they're not going to do it with dirt. Dirt is when you're going to go back to the strata, and that's going to take you to uranium lead dating. So when it comes down to the strata, strata is dealing with rocks. So you have a stratigrapher, they're dealing with the study of rocks. All right, so now, who knows what poly means? Many, multiple, right? So what do you think polystrate is? If I show you, this is a polystrate fossil, what am I showing you, trying to tell you? It's a what? Layers. We're going to get into that because that's one of the other things I have to show you guys. They're dealing with, oh yeah, we know this is, billions of years old because, we saw this polystrate fossil. It's a fossil going through different layers of sediment, which we'll get in a different note. All right, these are some of the things, because this is also an introduction. I'm telling you guys some of the things I'm going to get for you later. Because some may have questions. Oh, you said this. I want to know that. Okay, we'll get into that more so later as we progress. I'm going to get different points, okay? So now it's one of those things. So now we have radiocarbon. It says, now with a half-life of about 5,730 years. Who knows what half-life is? All right, let's look that up. Half-life. Say that? What in particular? Be more specific. Not the original state of the atom of decay. So now, we do have to pass on the mic. So now, with physics, said the time required for 1/2 of the atoms of a given amount of a radioactive substance to disintegrate. That's what you're dealing with. So now, if someone says, This is radiocarbon dated to 100,000 years ago. They say the Earth is radiocarbon dated to 100,000 years ago. Is that true or false? Can we prove it with the radiocarbon dating method? Can anyone fill this in? All right, no one can fill it in, right? All right, we'll fill it in together. All right, so we know the half-life is what? 30 years plus or minus 60. Now, what percentage is that? What percentage? Huh? Well, yeah, of course, you know, you were doing it earlier with me. All right, it's 50%. Guys, we just went through it. What the definition of half-life? It said the time required for 1/2 of the atoms of a given amount of a radioactive substance to disintegrate. So, half-life, just think 50. Think half. Like literally, think half. So what's half-life? 50%. So now, 50%, what is the fraction? 1/2. Thank you. So now, bring out your calculators, because you got a little bit of math. This is science. You got a little bit of math, because you weren't taught this in school. So, for a reason. Who's that? You guys? That you? Who's that? Why is it doing that? Oh, that's coming from the speaker? Oh, go ahead and mute your mic. You guys want to go ahead and mute your mics. That's someone going ahead online. That's probably someone in Jamaica or Ghana. If not,
You can mute all.
I have to mute you.
You can
Yeah, let me go ahead and mute him.
Yeah, that's
All right, there we go. All right. So now, once again, okay, so 50%. Now, what is 5,730 times 2? Y'all got smartphones. Come on, what is it? Y'all make it seem like y'all got to bring out the pencil and paper right now. Like, golly, is that hot in here? 11,000. You said 460? Okay. So now, once again, 11,460 years. Now, what's half of 50? 25%. What's the fraction? 1/4. Put a circle there, circle there. So now the next thing is, what's 5,730 times 3? I'll give you a hint. Come on, y'all, Mom. You asking or telling? What's 5,730 times 3? I'm sorry, times 3.
190.
So 17,000 what? 190. Those are the years. So now looking at that, what's half of 25%? Thank you, 12.5%. Now mind you, and all my kids are not here today, but the kids did this and it was wonderful. You know, we're doing this with the kids, so I'm doing it with you guys. So we did this with Tila first, and they was able to do the math on this. So now, what is the fraction with this? 1/8. So now the next one, what's 5,730 times 4? 22,900 and what? 20. So now, what's half of 12.5? 6.25. Thank you. What's the fraction? 1/16. Thank you. Bonnie, you was good in math in school, huh? You said one thing I paid attention. Okay, now, who knows? Once again, I gave you guys knowledge. Who has the understanding? And if you can, what's the understanding of this? I gave you the knowledge, so what's the understanding? How is this relative to anything we're talking about or going over? Who has the answer? If you can tell. Not you. Wife know already. Anybody, how is this relevant? Go ahead, Radash, you on it. Pass her the mic, may you please. How do you think this is relevant?
I got a question first.
Go ahead.
So on For the vertical line, that's the time, right? We're calculating how much time as
Yeah,
far
so
as.
down here at the bottom,
I mean, that's the time. But
yeah,
then
this is time
Yeah.
in years,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at what? We're looking at carbon breaking down into what? Who remembers?
Nitrogen?
Thank you, nitrogen.
Okay. So I guess
Forgive my sloppy writing, all right?
I would think you would just keep calculating that until you get to 0%.
Right.
And then whatever it is that's at the bottom that's maxed out at 0%.
Now look at the years, though.
The years.
What type of years are you seeing? Because now this is one of the things to help making sense. You're going somewhere, but now here, I'm going to make it simple. If someone says the earth or anything in it, when you're dealing with that the earth is carbon dated, the earth is carbon dated to 80,000 years, 100,000 years, or, we found shells carbon dated to 80,000 years. No, the hell you didn't. Carbon dated don't even go that far. And you can do the math right there. Let's do the math. My teacher taught me this. Pull out, you could do a little notepad, the same thing. Pull out the same thing. It don't even go to know. You think that's going to go back to some 80,000 years? And here's the thing. You may go back to 30,000, things of that nature. Maybe, if we continue doing the math the back of it continually. But it's one of those things at the end of the day, is that going to give me a big number? Not at all. So this is a method, scientifically, you can do to prove someone wrong who says, if they ignorantly, because in ignorance they'll say the earth is carbon dated. Carbon dating isn't a good method for going ahead and dating the earth. Someone give me the understanding as to why. Who knows? You're getting somewhere. That's on the right track. But more to it than that. It's what we were dealing with. Back on that slide. Go back to the slide with the time, because I want to say that it's a key thing in this. Why do you think the carbon dating method would not be good when it comes down to dating the earth? What's that? Someone said it. Did you say it, Thom? You giving the answers out there? Who said it then? We didn't? Who said it? Someone said he had the right answer. Oh, you said it? Well, then say it louder then. Passing the mic.
Because it's breaking down to nitrogen.
Thank you. It's breaking down to nitrogen, and the biggest thing on top of breaking down to nitrogen is one of those things to where carbon dating doesn't yield big years. That's it. It doesn't yield big years. With that method, you're not going to get no 100,000 years of things of that nature. You won't even see 80, 60. So how are you going to get big years from that? That's where you get someone to where who they're dealing with carbon dating. They tell you something 80,000 years old. What you going to say, you walking on? You a liar. Why? It's impossible. Well, how is it impossible? You can show them. You got your calculator? You can tell them. You got your calculator? Let me show you. It doesn't matter. I don't care what PhD they carry. They can tell it all day. Well, let's look at your method and determine whether or not with your method, that scientifically, how far can that method be used to date back? And we'll get into the flaws with that because there's even other things with that to where it's not even accurate. This is what you're dealing with once again. You're dealing with time. How far back can he, substantiate time going back? That's carbon dating, which carbon dating was invented who knows by who. And brother, make sure you write these things down because this is going to be in your test. This is your disciple school class. But you'll get it again. Carbon dating was invented by who? Nope. I see where you're going. That's who we're going to deal with uranium lead. He's not the one invented, but the leading authority. So we'll get into him later when dealing with dates. Because once again, to be able to prove something, you have to understand how Esau does it and how that's wrong. And have that coincide with the scriptures. Because you're going to deal with who sees this bottom folder next to the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. What did that folder say? Young earth. The earth is very young. We're going to scientifically prove, how young it is and how we know that. So now we already know that carbon dating doesn't yield large dates, right? But carbon dating, let's get notable figures, was invented by this person. Most people don't know this. Thank you. Willard Frank Libby. You know what year? Thank you. You looked it up, huh? Someone using a smartphone. Thank you. Most people act like they ain't got it in their pocket, you know. But it's one of the things. Willard Frank Libby. He's an American chemist whose technique of carbon-14 or radiocarbon dating provided an extremely valuable tool for who? Thank you. Archaeologists. So the archaeologist is trying to depend on carbon dating. Because when you deal with the time, and we're going to get into that later, the geophysicist is going to rely on the paleontologist. The paleontologist is going to rely on the archaeologist. The archaeologist is going to rely on the cosmologist. It becomes a circular reason on who's responsible for proving and substantiating how old anything is. That's all they're going to do is shift the blame. You back them in the corner. You know, you back the geologist in the corner. Well, that's not particularly my job. You know, that's a job for the paleontologist. Paleontologists said, no, that's not our job to prove that. We're dating this is this old because the archaeologist dating this. No, we're not dating that. I'm sorry, that's not us. That's not on us to prove that. We're just saying this because of what cosmologists say. Cosmologists is, once again, and it becomes a circular thing to where, okay, y'all all pointing the blame at each other. Y'all just pulling dates out the crack of your, and I'm going to get that. I'm going to get proof. They just pull dates out of yin yang. That's it. This is their religion. This is not science. This has nothing to do with science. This is strictly religion and fables. Nothing to do with science. What I just gave you was a breakdown understanding one of their scientific methods. Now, the key thing I didn't show you was the accuracy of it. That we'll have to get. Everybody make sense? All right, so now this is getting deep into Genesis. This is getting deep into creation. This is getting deep into time and history and time as we know it and dealing with history. Because time, y'all do a past and event, dealing with history. Okay, well, how do we prove that? Because once again, you have to understand what are you dealing with when you're dealing with the time of the scriptures and history. How far back does it go? When is the beginning? Is it 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, million? And how can you prove when someone says, oh, yeah, sure. Well, I know what the Bible said, but these things have been proven to be carbon dated this far. You know? No, it's not. Carbon dating still proves a young earth. But it's even younger than that. We'll get that. So now, Willard Frank Libby was an American chemist whose technique of carbon-14 or radiocarbon dating provided an extremely valuable tool for archaeologists, anthropologists, and earth scientists. Earth scientists dealing with your geologists. That was a big tool. They found it a scientific breakthrough. Winston, you did it again. Give them a prize. And what do? They copy this from everywhere. Because notice, 1946 wasn't that long ago. You know, in retrospect to all the time that's passed. It wasn't like it was hundreds of years ago. They just recently came up with it. You know, so now he was honored with the Nobel Peace Prize for chemistry and so on and so forth. Making sure there's nothing else I generally want to get out of this. I think that's good right there. Actually, one of the things I want to do, I'm actually going to, for this point, the next thing I have to show you dates, I'm going to switch tablets. All right. So bear with me. I'm going to switch my tablet because I have something else to show on this one. Let me go ahead and maximize that screen. All right, same layout, but had to show something else in particular. All right, so now, once again, I want to get this. I know my portfolio very well. So annotations have to be kept down to a science because I want to be quick on the gun when I'm showing somebody this. Same way I want brother to be. Showing this, you want to be quick on the gun. Don't give him no room to breathe, you know, so no room. So now, once again, because it had been known since 1939 that cosmic rays, remember I was talking about the sun's cosmic rays that hit the earth, that cosmic rays create showers of neutrons or striking atoms in the atmosphere. Those rays hit the atmosphere, and that's how you get those radioactive carbons. So now, and because the atmosphere contains about 78% nitrogen, which absorbs neutrons to decay into the radioactive isotope carbon-14, just like I was showing you. Carbon decays into nitrogen. Libby concluded that traces of carbon-14 should always exist in atmospheric carbon dioxide, because we're dealing with atmospheric carbon dioxide. Also, because carbon dioxide is continuously absorbed by plants and becomes part of their tissues, plants should contain traces of carbon-14. Since animals consume plants, animals should likewise contain traces of carbon-14. After a plant or other organism dies, no additional carbon-14 should be incorporated into its tissue. So now that's when we deal with the decay. So now we're always taking in carbon-14 because we're always eating plants or eating animals. So it's one of those things, ours is always getting replenished. But once we die, it stops getting replenished. It's going to then just die out or decay. So now after a plant or other organism dies, no additional carbon-14 should be incorporated into its tissues, while that which is already present should decay at a constant rate. So they speak, which we'll get into. The half-life of carbon-14 was determined by its co-discoverer, chemist Martin D. Kamen, to be 5,730 years, like I was dealing with, which compared with the age of the Earth is a short time, but one long enough for the production decay of carbon-14 to reach equilibrium. Notice that, to reach equilibrium. Well, once again, there's errors with that, that's so to speak. In his Nobel, in his Nobel presentation speech, Swedish chemist Arne Westgren summarized Libby's method. Because the activity of the carbon atom decreases at a known rate, it should be possible by measuring the remaining activity to determine the time elapsed since death. Now, let's get one of the things that people don't like to speak on. Let's get more of these carbon dating methods because it's dealing with time and history. I'm going to break more of these things down according to the understanding of it. Go ahead and get... I don't want that. I want this. All right. So we dealt now, you may hear the term prehistory a lot, right? What is prehistory? What's that? Prehistoric. So, but then to know if it's prehistoric, what is history? Let's look it up. No, well, he's right. His story. Look up history. The branch are now dealing with the study of past events. You're dealing with the continuous, systematic narrative of past events. That's what you're dealing with. So now, it's one of those things to where we're dealing with past events. Now, prehistory, or prehistoric, are pertaining to the time or a period prior to recorded history. So prior to it being recorded, and being recorded by some sort of person, how do you know whether or not it happened? How do you know when it happened? You don't. It's a guess. And you can prove that just with that alone.
Basically before man.
Yeah, before man. So now, once again, now this is from BibleArchaeology.org. This is dealing with, and I'll get to actually the source, but dealing with the flood. So which I'll get into later on when we get to that particular place in the scriptures. So the prehistoric man has always been described as living in the Stone Ages. However, Stone Age people are a relative phenomenon, which we'll deal with more, and how. In every generation, including ours, since the beginning of time, some groups have lived in a Stone Age, while nearby people live with high civilizations. So the point is that a culture cannot be dated based on our use of stone implements. Broadwood's opinion, typical of many prehistorians, is completely speculative. Prehistory means the time before written history began. Actually, more than 99% of man's story is prehistory. So most of which, what they're saying is supposed to be our history, is prehistoric. So then how can you say that any of that is factual or even happened? So now, man is probably well over 1 million years old. It proved that. But he did not begin to write history or to write anything until about 5,000 years ago, which we'll get into that, 1967. So if a man could not and did not write during prehistory, there is no way to be sure of his age of 1 million years. And that's it. That is common sense. You leave it at that. So the sophisticated dating methods notwithstanding, this is so because radioactive dating methods cannot be calibrated with known dates before 5,000 years ago. And I'm going to elaborate on that. Thus, cannot date Stone Age cultures usually claim to be older than 30,000 BC. So now, authentic dates only go back a few thousand years. We're going to get that. So now, scientists speak about radiocarbon dating. So carbon-14 dating was considered to be a tremendous breakthrough in science when Willard Libby devised it in 1946, as I talked about. But let's see what they were saying. So now, this is one, and this is from pathlights.com. It says, the earliest are 3000 BC. The authentic ones go back to 1600 BC. We'll get that. Well-authenticated dates are known only back as far as about 1600 BC. I say again, well-authenticated dates are known only back as far as about 1600 BC in Egyptian history. And we're going to even get to that because how accurate is even that? According to John G. Reed, J.G. Reed, Journal of Near Eastern Study, Volume 29, Number 1, 1970. Thus, the meaning of dates by C14 prior to 1600 BC is still as yet controversial. And we'll get as to why. H.M. Morris, W.W. Boardman, and R.F. Kuntz, Science and Creation, 1971, page 85. Now, this is key. Listen to this. The first shock Dr. Arnold and I had was that our advisors informed us. So now these scientists, they have conferences. And it's like other scientists ask, all right, look, how much do we truly know on these things? You know, how much do we have? So look, the first shot Dr. Arnold and I had was that our advisor informed us that history extended back only 5,000 years. I wonder why. Why might that be? Why doesn't it go further than that? Why does history doesn't go back any further than 5,000 years? Someone tell me, give me the understanding, or give your people the understanding if thou canst tell. There's two answers, good answers you can give. Give me one of the two. Why does it stop there? Go ahead, Pastor Mike Tyrone. Go ahead, he's back there in the back, sitting down in the chair. He said, can you meet me halfway? Go ahead, why?
Because that's when life was created for men and women. He created us on the 5th day. So civilization will go back into the time of, when life was actually created. The first 4,000 or 5,000 years, there was no life.
I see where you're going, but no, that would be incorrect. Think about it. 2,000 years ago, we were dealing with, now, you go back 2,000, well, now, like, what, we in 2020? So going back then, 2,000, 20 years ago, you're dealing with going now into BC, right? So now you add 3,000 onto that, you're dealing with 3,000 BC.
Time of Moses, yeah.
Now, during with that, no, not time of Moses, so it's not that time either. We'll get into that too, more so in the Exodus. You're dealing with what event might be stopping or prohibiting us going back further?
The flood, right?
Thank you, the flood. The flood is one of the key things. Now, of course, what's good, dealing with, other thing with creation, but it's one of the things, the key thing is thinking with the flood. Or you could be dealing with, as you were dealing with that, the end of creation, but we didn't get the dates with that, so we can make sense of everything. So, now, it said, history extended back only 5,000 years. It says, you read books and find statements that such and such a society or archaeological site is said to be 20,000 years old. And once again, archaeological site. So, which pay very close attention to these things. Because once again, this is where carbon-14 was a breakthrough for who? Particular. What did we read in the earlier slide? For what, sciences? What type of people? Archaeologists, right? Said carbon-14, good breakthrough, good. Why did we need that? Well, we're going to get into why. So we learned rather abruptly that these numbers, these ancient ages, are not known. In fact, it is about the time of the first dynasty in Egypt that the last, or meaning earliest, historical date of any real certainty has been established. And who wrote that? Who said that? What's the source? Who said that? Who's that? The one who learned carbon dates. So he's getting in there and learning about the scientists and, all right, well, how much do we truly know? He's like, all right, well, we don't really know anything. All these days is just made up. Y'all just put this in text. Well, it's just theory. Once again, we say it's probable, approximately, so y'all don't even know. Well, yes, but we're hoping you can help clarify or fill in those gaps, sir. So once again, so archaeologists coming up with these dates, they didn't even know, making up dates. Literally. Let's get more of that. Actually, I don't even, do I want that one? Okay, I guess I can read this last one. So it says, if the earth and life on earth are really as ancient as the theory of evolution requires, a great proportion of radiocarbon ages should be infinite. This is because with the half-life of only 5,730 years, initial radiocarbon in a fossil decays or decreases in about 10 half-lives to a level too low to be measured. So now, you guys remember when I was bringing out the, radiocarbon, the half-lives, and the percentages, right? Now, how accurate do you think one can actually be trying to get something from, think about it, you have 100% of something, how accurate you think you can really see at 6% or 3%? Think about it. Think about you taking a test, you only know 3% of the information needed. You think you're gonna do good on that test? No. You miss the majority of information that you need. Likewise, that's why it says this at the bottom. Initial radiocarbon in a fossil decreasing about 10 half-lives to a level too low to be measured. We can't even measure it now. You can't even measure anything. So now, let's continue reading. At about 600 BC, this is going back. Think about like 600 BC. You're dealing with what captivity, brethren? No. Well, you're dealing with Northern Kingdom, but then again, still no. 600 BC. Not Greece. You're dealing with Babylonian transition, and you're about to start getting the Persian and Medes. So you're dealing with the Babylonian, about to start transitioning to the Persian and Mede Empire. That's what captivity you're dealing with, all right? So now, it says the C14 activity level is about 10%. So about 600 BC, we only got 10% left of the radiocarbon needed. Before this, the atmospheric activity is observed to decrease in such a way that by about 2000 BC, it is of order of, then pretty much 50%. Clearly, the trend for older samples to have progressively lower delta percent levels is observed. In other words, the whole picture is now consistent with the non-equilibrium model. Before 2160 BC, there are no suitable, meaning historically datable materials for calibration purposes, and so it is not possible to trace the curve further back in time. That didn't drop from 3000 BC. They said, now we got to stop at 2160 because technically we can't really, there's nothing really historically that we can date to say this is this to kind of date this back to get from. Conventional C14 calibration had the effect of stretching out radiocarbon time and slowing down. For example, the rate of man's cultural development, by contrast, this revised approach had the effect of compressing radiocarbon time and speeding up the rate of man's cultural development. Okay, so now, let me make that simple more so. All right, let's say, let me stop mirroring that one, start mirroring on this one. And make it bigger so we can make sense of this. All right, they say radiocarbon dates have a method of, all right, we don't need this anymore, right? Anyone need take a picture, note, we all good? All right. You gonna say something? Go ahead. You passing the mic?
Even with that formula, 5,730, give or take 60.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean.
It's still plus or minus because at the end of the day, they don't know. And then later on, we can even get, they're not even sure about that. Let me go ahead and erase this. Erase. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, it's a scientific method, but it's not necessarily an accurate one or the most accurate one. That's what you're dealing with more so. All right, so let me erase this. There's a lot on here. I don't feel like doing all that writing. But you guys understanding for the most part? All right, anybody like lost, like I don't understand like what the hell it is we talking about? So, everybody making sense? All right, cool. All right, so now, would you deal with one of those things that a lot of these dating methods, what they do, let's say I draw a timeline. Draw two. All right, so let's say it's all moving that way. A lot of time what's done, and when we get into each, I'll show you the same thing with these dating methods. They have the ability of, let's say, let's say I'm gonna get into it. Let's say all of the creation up until now, 12,000, we should break it up, 5,000 years old, 3,000 years old. Now let's say what a lot of these dating methods do, especially radiocarbon, they're taking this at the bottom, this time here, and they stretch it out. Oh, snap. All right, they have the ability, and this is what a lot of times happen, they stretch out the time, all right? So in layman's terms, they stretch out the time. So that's the key thing. That's all they're doing at the end of the day. With a lot of these dates, it stretches out, the time. When at the end of the day, that's not accurate just because it stretches out the time. That's it. That's literally it. Nothing more to it. Don't have to further now analyze it, whatever it is, past that. All right, so let me go back to where we were. All right. So now, now, once again, reading that conventional carbon-14 calibration had the effect of stretching out radiocarbon time and slowing down. So it stretches out over a longer period of time. For example, the rate of man's co-development, and by contrast, this revised approach had the effect of compressing radiocarbon time and speeding up the rate of man's cultural development. So that all these years they say, yeah, man was in Stone Age for this amount of time, and it was like, no, it was a lot shorter than that, if it was that. So that's pretty much what you're dealing with. So next one is, although it was hailed as the answer to the prehistorian's prayer, prehistorians dealing with what type of ologists? Paleontologists, archaeologists, who else? Geologists, thank you. So prehistorian's prayer. So now, when it was first announced, there's been increasing disillusion with the radiocarbon method because of the chronological uncertainties. In some cases, absurdities that will follow a strict adherence to the published carbon-14 dates. What bids to become a classic example of carbon-14 irresponsibility is the 6,000-year-old spread of 11 determination for Jarmo, which is a prehistoric village in northeastern Iraq, which, on the basis of all archaeological evidence, was not occupied for more than 500 consecutive years. So how could you get a widespread date of that? So, of course, source down there at the bottom. Let's get the next thing. All right. So now, this is from Herbert W. Armstrong, HWA, library.com. So now, question to antiquity. So now, for decades, archaeologists struggled to put together a chronological framework of prehistory, but with little success. Key to word, little. There seemed to be as many theories as there were archaeologists and geologists. Controversies raged back and forth. Then a startling new approach to the problem was discovered. It all began in the mid-1940s. The place was the University of Chicago. Here, a relatively unknown chemist, Willard F. Libby, you keep hearing his name. Make sure, brothers, write that down. Most people don't even know that name. Was working with a revolutionary new idea. The result of his work catapulted him into international prominence. So once again, what type of prominence? International, meaning what? How is that relative? That means his discovery became the standard of the world. Everyone who deals with carbon-14 deals with his science, which we're going to deal with those things momentarily, because whoever the scientist is that discovers it, that becomes the norm everywhere. That becomes like the standard everywhere. This is now what we follow. Until another scientist comes up with something else. That's it. So now that's all they're saying. So now it's one of those things. So the result of the work catapulted him into international prominence. For his work, Dr. Libby received the Nobel Peace Prize in Chemistry in the year 1960. His method of measuring time is called radiocarbon or carbon-14 dating. Dr. Libby, according to noted scientist Frederick Johnson, dropped the equivalent of an atomic bomb on archaeology. We'll see how. More than 25 years later, impact from this scientific explosion has not yet subsided when it comes down to this particular dating method. It was supposed to be a big breakthrough, but it's not that accurate, which we'll find out. Now, Let's look at the archaeological method. Before carbon-14, jokingly referred to as BC, little was really understood about recent Earth history. Archaeologists said, Frederick Johnson, were guilty of steering by the seat of their pants. They were just guessing. Put that in the textbooks. So now the reason was simple. Archaeological answers were really guesses compiled from very fragmentary data. Now remember that, fragmentary data would deal with archaeologists. We're going to go this when we briefly go into Egypt. They're dealing with fragments. Egypt, you can count on one hand how many things that they have to date. Writings of Manetho, Acts of those are even extant. So writings of Manetho, Sothic Cycle, Abydos King's List, Turin Papyrus, there's not that many things out there, that they use to try to date these things. And we'll deal with the accuracy of those things. So now, once again, so it says the reason was simple. Archaeologists or archaeological answers were really guesses compiled with very fragmentary data. Radiocarbon dating made havoc with these archaeological estimates of time. Frederick Johnson explained how. With few exceptions, this archaeological extraction was by inference and guessing. Libby's provision of a means of counting time, one that promised a definable degree of accuracy and worldwide consistency. We'll prove that wrong momentarily. Caused all sorts of consternation because many of the new findings threw doubt on the validity of some established and archaeological opinions. They say, we already got the dates here, you messed up the dates again. That's from Frederick Johnson, Radiocarbon Dating, Archaeology in North America, and you see the date. So now Johnson then cited on the same page a typical comment of one very reputable archaeologist. We stand before the threat of the atom in the form of radiocarbon dating. This may be the last chance for old-fashioned, uncontrolled guessing. So now, archaeology versus chemistry. Even after radiocarbon dating became established, disagreements were widespread. Consider one example, that of a hunting people called Slotrians in Europe. Guesses are as to when they arrived vary widely. Piquet and Fleury think it was about 12,000 years ago, while Zenner puts them back to 60,000 years ago, years before our time. Radiocarbon dates indicate only 18,000 years. Kenneth McGowan and so on and so forth. World New York. So why such confusion? The reason is clear. Archaeologists had no way to accurately count actual years. Because once again, how are you going to count that time? You can't. What method are you going to really use to try to count that time? Tell me. A lot of y'all eat, like chicken bone got a date on it? Does it? You eat that chicken, it got date, died at such and such. The bones ain't got dates on them. So if I look at this, it ain't gonna tell me how old it is. I'm trying to guess. Oh, brush this off. Oh yeah, this is a glass. It must be taken from the Precambrian era. Has to surely be, over 100,000 years old. Surely. What do you think, Watson? Surely has to be. Any other date is blasphemous. But that's what they do. Yeah. And they try to teach that in your schools because that's the stuff you was taught like growing up. That's science. How the hell is that science?
It's not.
Look at the definition of science. Let's see what science is. What did that number one definition say?
A branch of knowledge or study dealing with a body of facts.
Body of what?
A body of facts.
Or what?
Or truths.
So once again, dealing with facts or truth. What you're dealing with isn't even scientific. So guess what? You got to throw that out. That's not a fact. How can you prove that? You tell them to throw it out. That's not a fact. Well, if you see here, according to that's not a fact. Give me facts. I'm going to show you facts with your own methods. So now, once again, so you have it. Where am I at with time? All right. Checking the class. Y'all want me to stop there or you want me to go to 6:30? It's up to y'all. Keep going. Who else? 6:30? All right, it's up to y'all. This is part one. It's a continuous thing, so you ain't going to, get through it. Like I said, this isn't a rush thing. It's a process, continuous thing. For the disciple school, it's the same thing. It's going to be your continuous learning. All these things are going to be on it to learn these things. It's all your continuous learning. We're just going to continue going on further and further and further because this is your education. I'm giving you we're dealing with physics. We're gonna deal with geology. We're gonna deal with cosmology. We're gonna deal with astronomy. You know, things of that nature. All these things is what you guys are dealing with. You know, so that we're breaking down science, archaeology, history, according to the Bible. Because like I said, the Bible is real. Then all these things, science is only gonna prove the Bible. So why then can we not use science? Because science is going to prove the Bible because we haven't been taught. That's it. We haven't been taught, so we don't know. We just hear Esau says this, and a lot of us, shoot, Esau come around, or even us, our own people come around speaking something scientific, or the kind of community, oh yeah, this is, it predated this and this, and we know this, and you know, you can't use this book and that book, and at the end of the day, it's some of us, well, a lot of us, we tuck tail because I don't want to get into it, because I can't defend it. So I don't even want to begin to open up that can of worms because I can't defend it. Therefore, it become one of those things where I don't know, and then it become one of those things either you may feel dumb, you may look dumb, things of that nature. I don't want us to do that. As Israelites, we are known for our knowledge and understanding. I'm, as an Israelite, taking our knowledge and understanding to the next level. That's it. Then we have to take it scholarly. That's what you do. At a collegiate level, getting it, but I have to break it down to you as if it's, you know, well, I do it with the kids, so elementary. You know, because like I said, they get it in 7, 8, 9 years old. So you guys should get it. If you don't, let me know so I can break it down. My job is to make those things easier. It's like, for example, I ask you, what is the mass number of carbon? 14. So one of those things. What is half-life? Half, 50%. 50%, it breaks down to disintegrates. What does carbon break down into? Nitrogen. See how easy is that? Y'all knowing already. Half of what y'all need to know. Good, all praises. All right, so let's continue. All right, back to the iPad. All right, let's continue. So I'll stop there, and we're going to do some little other methods too, because we're dealing with the history side of time, but then we got to get the other side of time. All right? So now let's continue. Where was I? Archaeology versus chemistry. So even after radiocarbon dating became established, disagreements were widespread. And I read that one. Next one. Archaeologists had no way to accurately count actual years. Consequently, no way initially existed to check the dates radiocarbon gave in the prehistoric period. They couldn't even check those things. Dr. Libby and his associates were faced with this problem when they first devised the radiocarbon method. They had expected a historical check. So there, once again, you guys, remember I was telling you that geology depends on archaeology depends on paleontology depends on the cosmology depends. That's what it, okay, we're getting these things. Well, heck, doesn't the archaeologist know when these things are? Well, let's just go to them. Hey, we want to verify these things. See how you know, actual and proof and historic these things are. You guys know how far back these dates go, right? Oh, no, we don't know these dates, man. We just be guessing. You know, they don't even go back that far. What do you mean y'all just be guessing? Man, look, we just like, hey, we say approximately. We don't say that's what exactly. When the last time, hey, read what text, but where do we say exactly? Show me once. See, we ain't never said exactly, so we ain't lied. We just said approximately. It can be approximately 1 billion, or it can be approximately 5,000. I just approximate. He said, man, boy, not so good with the math, huh? So now, it's one of those things, but that's just the truth. So now, it said they had expected historical check through the use of historically known dates all the way to the limits of the method, but they were in for a shot. Like I said, Dr. Libby, writing in January 1956, issued American scientists recounted briefly the history of radiocarbon dating. The first shot Dr. Arnold and I had with our advisor informant that our history extended back only 5,000 years. We had thought initially that we would be able to get samples of all along the curve back to 30,000 years. So they thought, well, all right, don't we have like a chronological account of these things going back? No, we don't. It only goes back to well, to be honest, okay, we only know for sure 1600 BC, but you know, it's some other ones that, you know, could go back to 3000 BC. Well, how do y'all get these other dates? I mean, well, like I said, it's just approximates, you know, so it's just approximates. You know, we don't know. So now, once again, it says you read in the books and find statements that such and such a society or archaeological site is 20,000 years old. We learn rather abruptly that these numbers, these ancient ages, are not known. In fact, it is about the time of the first dynasty in Egypt, because this is why we got to point back to Egypt. And this is back with archaeologists, like he was pointing at. We got to go back to what archaeologists know, that the last historical date of any real certainty has been established. So we had in the initial stages the opportunity to check against knowns, principally Egyptian artifacts. And in the second stage, we had to go into the great wilderness of prehistory to see whether there were, the great wilderness, they don't even know. It's a wilderness, you don't even know where you're going. They say, well, we have to go into this lost world of prehistory to try to get something when you don't even know. Prehistory is before, no one knows. Generally, Most High knows, and he told us. We're going to prove that. So now, to see whether there were elements of internal consistency which would lead one to believe that the method was sound. Once again, lead you to believe the method was sound, because it ain't really sound. Once again, Willard F. Libby, Radiocarbon Dating in American Sciences, volume 44, number 1, January 1956, page 107. We had got parts of this speech earlier, because somebody said, didn't read that. We're at parts of it. This is the whole thing. So now it's one of those things to where they're hoping they can prove these things. Like it says, what about historical dates? Egyptian history begins about 5,000 years ago, according to the most liberal estimates. What does that mean? The most liberal estimates. Is that it? Wild guess. No, not wild guess. When I'm being liberal, what am I being? Generous. So that means, and we'll get into it, don't even go back 5,000 years ago. That's just the most, that means I'm just being nice to give you the maximum amount I can give you. Someone said, I gave you chips liberally. I just gave you a lot. You know, just get a lot of it. They said, look, the most liberal estimates, once again, estimates. It ain't fact. They don't know. Yes. Most liberal guesses. My most liberal guess is maybe 5,000 years ago. We'll get more of that and get more into disproving these things. But now, once again, this is are people starting to see how little Esau really knows? So how are you supposed to say all these things? Well, this is factual. This is true. This is science. This isn't science. This isn't true. This isn't facts. This is your religion. This is all just faith-based. You don't know. But yet and still you're going to tell me that I'm wrong for believing in what I believe? And I can substantiate and prove it wrong with your own stuff? That's what we're learning. Prove it wrong with their own stuff. Once you prove it wrong with their own stuff, they're going to be lost. Literally, I've seen it multiple times over the years, and brothers have been witness a few times to those different accounts. Those different accounts to where I'll challenge them. I'll love it because I know they don't know this. And if you do, we can have a very good discussion. I've had a good discussion one time. It was probably about 45 minutes, and it probably went in because the brother started bringing up, you know, and IQ seen it when he came. He dealing with Spider-Man and everything else. Well, you know, Spider-Man isn't real. And IQ just started laughing. Well, all right, I see this. He just pulling out whatever it is he can, you know, so things of that nature. But nevertheless, this is where you're going to be able to have a field day. I don't care what scientists or what brothers or what kind of community, you're going to be able to field day with them, and you'll enjoy it because you understand it. It makes sense. So now it's a situation where it's not foreign to you. It's not difficult. You know, I can pull the chart, shoot, half-life, carbon-14, 5,730 years. Look, let me show you. You don't even go back that far. Let me show you. And you have a field day. Yeah. See, there's not even enough to even percentage. They're high enough to even weigh anything. So how you get those dates? Then they want to break it down. And then, you know what they're going to want to do? They're going to want to flee and not want to deal with you. When they find out you know it on this level, they're not going to want to deal with you. That happens every time. Because they thought they knew more than you. And they thought they would stump you with things they haven't fully researched. They just watched a video of someone else teaching it and, oh yeah, well we know this and that and third, but they never really did no in-depth studying. They just watched the video, sounded good, or you watch brother so-and-so, teacher so-and-so, sounded good, and you just started regurgitating it, not even understanding it. So you'll get them. So now, continuing on, where'd I put my pencil? Well, Ed pencil let me borrow. I got to get one of these. So, all right, let's continue. So now, there was only one, and what about dating objects older than 5,000 years? There was only one way to check the reliability of radiocarbon dating over a longer time span, said archaeologist Edward S. Deavy Jr. And that was to test it in the materials of geology and prehistoric archaeology. The age of such materials is not what? Not known in the same sense as that of a mummy cases or trees. We'll deal with trees. And that was by Edward S. Dewey Jr., radiocarbon dating, so on and so forth. So there were no dates historically fixed with which to check. Radiocarbon was entirely alone. In the more historic or recent historic period, radiocarbon dates generally seem to agree with historical dates, with the apparent success of radiocarbon dating in the historic period. Libby very cautiously stated, in terms of physical principles, of course, a method which works for 3,000 years might just extend back all the way to 50,000. He did warn, however, this is mere conjecture. Willard F. Libby. He's the one that devised the method that, look, it's possible if this method goes back this far, just, in theory, should be able to go back, further. What do you think scientists did? No. It's going to go back. Believe it. This is beautiful. This is bread and butter. You're going to change the face. Give him a prize. Someone write him a letter. We're going to teach this internationally. And that's what they did. They just took it and ran with it. You ever try to tell somebody this, hey, can I drive your car? I need to go to the store real quick. Yeah, but the clutch worker said, I got it, but nah, it's stuck in a place. It may not get out of gear. I'm good. They get in the car. How you work it? It ain't coming out of gear. Man, I was trying to tell you, don't, come out the same way. It's busted. I know how to work it. You ever had people that had cars like that? They know how to work it. It didn't work entirely right. It was Mickey Mouse. You get in there, it's like foreign. That's the same thing. Y'all just took what I created and ran with it, and I'm trying to tell y'all, it ain't as accurate as what y'all thinking it is. So now, once again, so Dr. Libby was very heavily qualified in statements, but most writers simply glossed over such points. Laymen were led to believe the method was infallible. Infallible being what? It can't be, it's pretty much, it's foolproof. Can't beat the method. So now, were there carbon-14 dating? With such obvious difficulties, scientists now had only one alternative: submit carbon-14 dating to another new dating method by tree rings for verification, which we'll get into. Those tree rings is known as what form of science? Does anyone know? Any botanists, botanist circles? Anyone know what scientific method? Dendrochronology. Dendrochronology is the study of the tree rings. That's what they try to say. Well, we know, this is, 30,000, 20,000 years old. We studied the tree rings. So we'll get into that momentarily as well. We're going to get into all these things. Because you see how at the end of the day, they don't know radiocarbon is alone. We have to depend on something else. So nevertheless, we're going to go into that later on. So now, so submit carbon-14 dating to another new method dating by the rings of tree rings for verification. It was tacit admission that attempts to verify basic assumptions of the carbon-14 method were inconclusive at best. Geophysicists, your geologists, like Richard Lingenfeller, were now falling back on tree ring dating to test the soundness of radiocarbon dating. In his own words, because of the uncertainties in the calculation of both the production rate and decay of carbon-14, we find that the best determination of the ratio of these two rates is obtained from the C14 variation determined from dendrochronology, tree rings, as I was saying. So now they're letting you know carbon-14 ain't that accurate. He said because of the uncertainties in the calculation. So I gave you that half-life 5,730. Even then, that isn't what is the end-all be-all when dealing with classification, because that's even if it reaches equilibrium. Who said it reached equilibrium? So even then, that half-life isn't as much as what it is he makes it out to be. But you can play along, for their sake, but they're just one of the things showing you. But how accurate is tree ring dating? Well, let's get that. And we can come back to carbon-14. Let's get those tree rings. It's part in dealing a young Earth. So you see a lot of different things here. We'll deal with that there's a center of the universe, even though you guys heard of, we'll get more into, you guys have heard of Doppler, right? Oh, what do you know about Doppler? Where do you hear that? Here with the Doppler radar, right? When you're watching the weather. We'll get more some what happened because Doppler was a person. What about Hubble? What do you know about Hubble? Telescope. Spacecraft. Okay. We'll get more into that. Edwin Hubble, and we'll lean as to why he became so big and what did he do. So we'll get more so into those particulars because it's going to make sense. Let's look at dendrochronology. What is dendrochronology? See this man, he's looking at these rings and trying to date them. That's what they're looking at, literally. That is literally what they're counting. Literally, each one. And that gives the age of the tree. That's what they teach. So anyone deal with tree ring dating, I am counting these. Dendrochronology, also called tree ring dating, the scientific discipline concerned with dating and interpreting past events. We're going to break down how scientific this is or isn't. So now it says with dating and interpreting past events. So now, past events are known as what? No. History. This is once again time back, because someone say how is this all relevant? This is all time back to history. How do we know history? How do we know these past events? How do we know time? Well, let's look at dendrochronology. So interpreting past events, particularly paleoclimates and climatic trends. So once again, those paleontologists. So based on analysis of tree rings, samples are obtained by means of an increment borer, a simple metal tube of small diameter that can be driven into a tree ring to get a core extending from bark to center. The core is split in the laboratory. The rings are counted and measured, like I said. And the sequence of rings is correlated with sequences from other cores. That's how they line it up and try to align them and see where they're at, all right? Make sure I don't go over time, okay? I'm not trying to try to hold you. I'll skip that. So now it's one of those things where you see here, this is what they're dealing with. They're looking at the most recent grown years or from the outside, looking at the tree years. First year of growth is going to be inside. So now the one ring theory. So now most people, when it comes down to dendrochronology, this is how they count it. If I were to zoom in, you're literally able to see that from 1960 to 1970, there are 10. You can count 1960, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70. Everyone able to see that? Count that for themselves? All right. Like literally, count it in your head. Look from 1960 to 1970. Count the tree ring, because this is for your verification. This is the method and how it's used. So dendrochronologists, that's what they do. Okay, we cut it open. All right, let's go ahead. Let's count all the different ones that we see. That's how they date it. So now, what we're dealing with. So wither, carbon-14, the one ring, 1 year theory. Does one tree ring always represent 1 year? No, not necessarily so. In fact, the possibilities of false rings are rather common knowledge in botanical circles. Because once again, we know these tree rings are affected by many things. Sometimes trees get multiple rings in a year. So now, what's the importance of this? Let me switch. It just takes a little bit of math. I said, damn it, I'm tired of math. Y'all gonna be all right. Let me switch tablets. All right, this one has a larger surface area, so it allows me to be able to operate in a larger capacity, so that's why I particularly like this one. So make sure I stop mirroring on this one so I can mirror on this one. I said, damn, my tablet said, not anymore, I'm done. Let me stop mirroring, screen mirror, see I bring it up, do the math. Worst case scenario, my tablet doesn't want to be my friend. I go ahead and just have someone else do the math. All right, so this is generally what all right, now you want to be my friend. At the last minute. All right, let me maximize this. It's always a lot on here. All right, erase. So now we're dealing with dendrochronology. Dendrochronology is what? Trees. What about the trees? Tree rings. What do they do with the tree rings? They count them. So let's say I have this tree, have the center, the new growth. Okay, let's say each one of these rings is 10 years. Okay? All right, so everyone see that each one of the rings is generally 10 years, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Excuse my chicken scratch, all right? So now, each one of these rings represents 10 years. Let's just say, just for an example, all right? Everyone with me? Okay. Now, let's say, they say the theory is, how many rings does the tree get a year? 1. That's the theory. So now, what happens to this time, because I'm saying now I know this tree is 50 years old. Now, let's say this tree actually, and let's say the reality is the tree gets 2 rings a year. How old is this tree? Man, y'all got calculators. Someone give me the age of how old is this tree? No, you're thinking backwards. No. Come on, you guys, come on. All right, look. The theory, thank you, 25. Thank you. Once again, you're dealing with, the theory is 1 ring a year. That's not factual. That's not scientific. Trees can get multiple rings a year. What factors do you think might affect a tree's rings? Take a guess. What factor do you think might, I think someone said it. Huh? Growth. Yes, growth can affect it. What else? How much water it gets. Now, what can be the opposite of that, saturation? Drought. Drought will also affect it. What else do you think? Soil, nutrients, things of that nature. What else? Natural disasters, damage, wildlife. All these things affect the rings. So now this method is not even reliable because all these things affect it. So yeah, scientifically you got dendrochronology, we count the rings, but the method you're using isn't that accurate because of all these other factors at play. How do you know that this was accurately, that this tree every year accurately added on 1 year every year? How can you prove that? Can't. You can't. So it's one of those things to where this is what we're dealing with the accuracy of these things. And this is what you take to them. So you're saying you use dendrochronology, you use tree rings, use tree rings and dendrochronology. That's what tree rings is. And you say the 1 ring theory, right? But trees can develop multiple years. That's what you tell them. They can get multiple rings a year. And what are the different factors at play to where this isn't even accurate? You tell them the same thing. Someone tells you, well, we know this is so old because, someone tells you, we know this is so old because the tree rings. What you gonna tell them? They said, we know, this is 30,000 years because the tree rings. What you gonna tell them? Prove it. What you gonna tell them, Raya? How can you prove it? Well, they said, well, it gets 1 ring a year. Huh? What kind of factors? Well, there you go. That's it. That's it. You win the argument that way. Argument made simple. So guess what? Today you learn how to argue dendrochronology, you learn how to argue carbon-14. So these are the things you're learning, just in one class. Simple. This is all this is the science that you bring because, once again, this isn't completely their science, and I got 3 minutes. Let me stop mirroring there. Let me go back, mirror on the other one. That's great. So once again, like I said, y'all gonna be scientific experts. Because once again, I teach my kids, because I've been teaching them more of these things. And once again, I want our kids to be smart. They're gonna be smart people because their parents gonna be smart. Parents can't teach them what they don't know, so I gotta teach you so you can teach my babies. So that's what I need. So now, that's what makes our nation strong. That's how our nation gets stronger. So now, once again, does 1 tree ring always represent 1 year? What's the answer, class? No. Not necessarily so. In fact, the possibility of false rings are rather common knowledge in botanical circles. It's common. Those who are botanists know, what are you doing? This method isn't completely, infallible in the way that you're trying to take it. A botany text says the occurrence of false ring growth rings may cause the age of the tree to be overestimated. Such rings are produced by a temporary slowing of growth during the growing season. It gives the source. Other facts causing false rings would be defoliation by insects, drought, and variation in rainfall, some of the things we're covering. But there is something more disturbing. Most people don't even realize that no known living trees older than about 5,000 years have been found. More lengthy chronologies, the latest at just over 7,000 tree rings, are built up from dead tree stumps. These are pieced together in a delicate manner. So now the surprising age of living trees, which you'll find, there are no live 50,000-year-old trees, none 25,000, none at 10,000. As a matter of fact, the oldest known trees pose an enigma to uniformitarianism. Oh, we'll get that too. We'll get that next time. All right, so a uniformitarianism view, pretty much there's two main views. There's two main views when it comes down to God. Who knows one of those views? Come on, there's only two. Y'all know it. Evolution. Thank you. That's one of them. What's the opposite of evolution? What are you dealing with? What's that? No. That's part of evolution, because those things we'll go over. But what's the opposite of evolution? Creation. Creation deals with catastrophism. Evolution deals with uniformitarianism. Who knows the difference? Or guess at the difference? Anyone want to guess? Go ahead, Amata. Okay, so now you said one evolved, one was created. Uniformitarianism, also known as gradualism, deals with that these things are possible over hundreds and thousands, millions of years. It slowly turned this way. Everything that we see today has always been the same. Yeah, always been the same. Catastrophism deals with that. No, there were events that caused changes in our earth, in our atmosphere, things of that nature. Because we'll get into Pangea, things of that nature. All right, but nevertheless, I think I'm out of talking minutes. All right, I'm out of talking minutes. So that right there, hopefully you guys got a good start. We'll continue next time with part 2, whenever next time is, because my 3 main focus is what? Marriage, holy matrimony, the folly days, what else? This one here, and I think those are the main 3 I teach on, so I'll cycle it in with this. This was a start. This was also one of your, what's it called? Same thing with holy matrimony. This is your, not prototype, you can say beta version, but it's a pilot. So this was a pilot to test to see what you guys would generally think about it, all right? This was only going to be strictly for disciple school students. It wasn't going to be for the main body. So it was one with talks of other people and even talks out of country that it was, all right, I'll go ahead and do a class. If people like it, I'll continue. If you don't, then I won't do it, So it just dealing with what the people went. Just same thing. I ask y'all want to stop, keep going. I ask y'all, so make sure I'm considerate, because I know information can be draining. It's a lot of information. I don't want y'all being burnt out, but it's interesting. It's helping you. All praises. So this is what I've been studying, for years of things of that nature, so these are the things to where I'm dealing with, because I like to know. So that means me knowing, I have to understand, well, how this work? Well, why it work that way? And understand this. Well, why that? And understand to be able to teach you. So I don't just regurgitate it, I know it. So I know it up and down, left and right, and I want you guys to know it. Or as many of you as possible. I don't want you just regurgitate, oh, yeah, this is just 5,000. Nah, this is this because of this. This doesn't make sense because of this. I don't want you to say, oh, that's false. That's false science. Why is it false science? How is it false science? So you can give an answer to someone who asks you and break it down and be knowledgeable on that particular area. That's what I want for you guys, and that's what I'm trying to give us as the adults and also the children as well. All right, so hopefully most of you guys got something from that. We'll just pick it off next time with dendrochronology. So I asked y'all, what was you have? We was dendrochronology. I make a little note. We'll continue there. All right, so it's not meant to get through all. And like I said, we wasn't really going to read any more than Genesis 1:1. I told y'all that, so we wasn't going to get far because we're dealing with, once again, that space, time, and matter. So that's what we're dealing with. In the beginning, we have to break down even God. What is God there? What does it mean? Creation and created, things of nature, breaking these down. What's proof of that? How do we know these things were created? All these things, because what says it was random? Big Bang says it was random. So this is just a pilot. It's the beginning of it. Do you guys want it to continue or you want it to end? Continue? All right, then I'll continue. All right, so same thing like with anything else that I start. New series, it'll continue. So it'll be Genesis. I was trying to find a title. I'm just called the Book of Genesis Part 1. We get to Exodus, Book of Exodus Part 1, and so on and so forth. Book of Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy. That's just the way we're going through it. All right, but the most important to really give you guys a lot of understanding is Genesis and Exodus. All right, because I want you guys archaeology, when they say our forefathers wasn't in Egypt, you say, oh, of course they were. Here, bring this up. I know this. Nah, no way they could have been in Egypt at this time, because how you going to even say Ramses? These are artifacts, because even then, I want you guys to get all the meat off of bones of things. When there's an artifact, I want you guys to understand how this artifact carries over into proving multiple things, all right? That's why I have you, hey, take note of this, because these things carry over, and I don't want you guys to lose sight of something on the left because you're looking at the right. Nah, just put 2 and 2 together. Left and right is working with you. Don't be stuck, oh, I just got the right hand, I did with that. No, your left hand help you too. So the same artifacts that can help with one thing can help with another. You just never knew, oh, snap, this was right in front of me the whole time. You know, and I never saw it like that. Okay, well, not a problem. It's my job to help show you that so that you become more resourceful. And then we grow, and then guess what? Y'all blow bombs on the street, whatever it is, at your job or, you know, wherever else it is that you go, you can tell people, I got it, I know. So with that being said, any announcements? Announcements? Go ahead and end the stream and stop the share here. So any announcements?